a very exciting day here at Bryce Comics. We finally got the best comics set complete, back, graded, everything unrestored, absolutely amazing. Best Comics number 1, 2, 3, and 4, the complete series from 1939. In this video, we're going to go over the books, just briefly talk about why I think they're cool, where they came from, because it has an awesome story behind these books. And then we're going to talk about these concepts in the hobby that I think are really important to think about. And we're going to get to that at the end after we go over these books. So stick with me to the end, because I always want to highlight things on this channel that will make your collecting experience better, that will enrich your collecting experience. And I think there's some things and some topics in this video that will do just that. So stick with me to the end. But before we do, I want to mention that Bryce Comics is always buying. So if you are looking to move on from your collection, I hope that's not the case. But if you do, reach out to me, send me a list, let me know what you got, and I will shoot you a fast and fair offer and get you paid quick. We also are giving away 4 slabs just on our monthly giveaways, in addition to all the stuff we do on Whatnot. But if you subscribe, comment, and like this video, you're entered to win 2 slabs this month. And if you go over to brycecomics.com and sign up for the newsletter, you're entered to win 2 free slabs this month. Every single month you stay subscribed, you're entered to win. And it's just where you get first access to new inventory and discount codes and stuff when it comes through the shop. Use code COLLECT10 for 10% off all in-stock items. That code is always active. And follow me over on Whatnot. There's a link down in the description for $15 towards your first purchase, where we always have books in the Buy It Now for $15, so you can stop by, pick up a free book, and possibly win a whole bunch of other stuff for free. This last Whatnot show, we had 2 double winners, and we always do a wheel spin, where if you win 2 giveaways in the same show, you get to spin a wheel for your chance at $1,000, and it was just 1 spot off. This guy almost won 2 giveaways plus $1,000 in store credit. He got $50 in store credit. It's just a bunch of free stuff, ton of fun, and I hope to see you over there. There they are, folks. Best Comics number 1, 2, 3, and 4, the complete series that started in 1939, the first masked African-American hero in comics. And I'm just going to take a brief moment to explain where these books came from, why I think they're cool. I did a whole video on it. I'll put a link in the description if you want to go deeper down the rabbit hole. But this first issue here, the character of the Red Mask is featured as an African-American, which what I believe is an African-American, at the very least a person of color. Some people have said maybe he's not black, maybe he's, a different ethnicity, but the fact remains he was definitely a person of color on the first issue. And then in issue number 2, he remained a person of color on the interior pages, but a white man on the cover. And for the rest of the series, 2, 3, and 4, he's white on the cover and African-American on the interior pages. Lots of different theories about why that could be. I think it was because they completed the interiors before they did the covers. They found out that the cover with the African-American wasn't received well in 1939, and so they thought maybe we could sell more copies if we switch them to a white person. That's my working theory, but they just changed them on the cover and not the interior pages. So, where did these books come from? I posted a video about me securing these 2 books because I had been on the hunt for issue number 1 for, I think it was like 5 years, and it finally came up for sale at my comic shop. And then I just happened to find a raw copy of number 2 as well at my comic shop, very close in time. I got the issue number 2 graded, and then I did a video about the 2. And when I did the video, a collector in New Zealand reached out to me and said, hey, you're not going to believe this, but I found issues 2, 3, and 4, these 3 copies here, at a thrift store, I believe it was. And would you like to buy them to complete the set? And I had said in my video that I was happy with these 2. I didn't need to complete the set. I'm not a completionist. I can get the interesting part of the story with just those 2 covers. But when he reached out to me and said that, I said, well, of course. I mean, I can't just not complete the sets. It does bring up the question of, should you cross over this copy of Best Comics number 1? So the first thing to note is that I think it presents really well for a 4.0. So it's a 4.0 with cream to off-white pages, and it's from the Oxford collection. So a little bit about pedigrees and about this particular pedigree here. Oxford collection is a scarce early golden age pedigree from CBCS. And this was an interesting article on CBCS's blog here from my comic shop. It says, "Hello, CBCSers. We have a pretty special Golden Age collection, all graded by CBCS, going up for auction in January. The Oxford collection is being sold on behalf of the estate of longtime comic retailer Mike Van Houten. 52 issues, generally from 1936 to 1942-ish. Many of them very scarce." And then this is the link for all of the books that were in this pedigree. So it's interesting, there's only 52 books in this pedigree. Very, very, very small number of books when thinking of a pedigree. Usually it's, at least for CGC standards, a lot higher than that, which here's the one that I won here. And some of these were just so awesome. And it brings up some interesting questions, like why did these people grade it with CBCS? And why does CBCS recognize it as a pedigree and CGC won't? Look at this. The Comics number one went in an 8.5, went for $2,800. It seems like a great deal. A lot of these went for great deals. And I'm convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that this collection would have pulled in a lot more money. Look at this. The Funnies number one from 1936. If they were graded by CGC. It's just a fact, folks, that CGC demands a premium over CBCS comics. So why did this estate choose to go with CBCS? Well, they probably reached out to my comic shop to buy the collection, I would assume. I'm just making assumptions here. I don't really know. But the collector or retailer probably passed away, and the family reached out to my comic shop. They made him an offer, and they just bought the books raw, it would be my guess, from the family. And then my comic shop kind of champions and might even be associated with CBCS, so that's probably why they went with CBCS. Smash Comics, this one, was I bidding on this one? I can't remember. That's a great book right there. But anyways, I think it's interesting that they do that as a business. They're leaving money on the table, and you just go and look at sales to prove it. And I've bought Pedigree CBCS books for substantially less than the CGC counterpart, about 20% off. It didn't make a lick of difference that there was a pedigree on it. But it is cool to know where these books came from. And let's go look at CGC's status criteria for pedigree. And I got to say, I do agree with CGC's standards here for a pedigree. They are trying to keep pedigrees super, super special. And in order for it to be super special, the collection must be original owner. This means that the books must have been bought off the newsstand as they came out. For example, a collector cannot buy a high-grade run of 1940s comics from various sources and expect it to be considered a pedigree. The original owner need not currently own the comics for the collection to be considered for pedigree status. So you could buy an estate of original owner books and still get the pedigree. I mean, that happens all the time. Usually that is what happens, like probably what happened here with this Oxford collection. But that's also what happened with this, is that it seems like longtime comic retailer Mike Van Houten probably just collected these over the years in his dealings as being a comic book dealer. And there's only 62 or 52 issues in the whole pedigree. In addition, CGC says the collection must be of vintage material, meaning that large collection consisting of comics from 1970s to the present cannot be considered a pedigree. There's definitely nuance to this. I know that there was a newsstand pedigree of modern newsstand books because those are rare. So there is nuance. But in general, it has to be typically Golden Age or like Golden Age crossing over into Silver Age, and then sometimes like with the Mile High, it just spans all the eras, and they still do it for even the Bronze Age stuff. And then also the collection must consist of considerable amount of comics. Most pedigree collections consist of at least 1,000 books. And the collection must be high grade. So collections from Silver Age would be 9.2. However, there's nuance to this as well. For example, the Lost Valley collection consisted of Golden Age books that were technically mid-grade, but were almost across the board the highest graded copy for that book, which is, a lot of these books just don't get much higher than 5.0, 6.0. So a little bit of info there on pedigrees. If you lose the pedigree, that's the question, is like, would you care about that? Because personally, like if I were to cross this over and it were to get a 4.0 or better, I mean, I would absolutely prefer this in a CGC case, for one, because it would be oriented the same way as the others. I could probably send it back into CBCS and see if they could flip it around, but that would probably be a hassle. But, you know, I know it's from the Oxford collection, and so I could keep this label and just know where this book came from, that it, you know, is a really special collection and a cool piece of provenance for the book. It absolutely, if it did get a bump, that would be a major win to cross it over and get a bump. All those things considered, it's also fine the way it is. So now I want to talk about different collecting styles, and specifically this idea of catch and release as it relates to comic books. And the main point that I want to make here is that, first and foremost, there are many different ways to collect comics. You could be a completionist. You could be somebody who's more interested in the financial aspects of the books. You could be somebody who only likes graded books, or only likes raw books, or only likes to read comics, doesn't like to grade comics. Whatever the case is, we need to respect everybody's collecting style and recognize that we're all part of the same community, and live and let live. All right. Don't get so hung up in your own camp that you're saying everybody else is doing it wrong. There's lots of different ways to do it. There's tons of different ways to collect comics, and we need to respect everyone. But also, the point that I want to make here is we need to be intentional with your collecting style. I think that if you can learn what your collecting style is, if you can be intentional about it, put some thought into it, you can make less mistakes in collecting, and ultimately have more money to spend on comics and have a more enriching experience collecting comics. So if you take anything away from this video, I would want it to be that you should be intentional about how you collect comics, and really hone in a direction and a strategy, and, you know, just some kind of goal and path that you have for this thing. So let's talk about catch and release. This is something that, you know, I have experienced all throughout my collecting journey, which has changed drastically since I became a comic book dealer for obvious reasons that I'll touch on here in a minute. But I've always sort of been the type of person that was a catch and release type of guy. I would buy the book, I would set the goal, I would get the ASM 300. I remember getting an ASM 300 9.6 newsstand many years ago, and that was like this ultimate goal for me. And I remember that, like, it wasn't but a few months later when I was looking at that book, like, do I really want to keep that book, you know, or can I sell it? Is there something else I want to pursue? So I've always kind of been on the move with books. I've always would keep them, enjoy them for a certain amount of time, and then eventually put them up for sale. And I know that I see that a lot in the comic book community. I'm not alone. I see people that, you know, will post that video and that picture on Instagram of the Hulk 181 that they finally acquired, and then 6 months later, you recognize it. That's that same book that's, you know, now available for sale. And I totally relate to that, because that's kind of how my collecting journey has been. There's so many comics, you know, there's so much to pursue and to chase and to hunt. And for a lot of us, you know, the hunt is the whole journey, or at least a big part of that journey. And so if you spend a bunch of money and you're hunting this comic and you finally acquire it, and you enjoyed that journey, and then you notice you're low on funds, and you decide, well, if I sell this book, I can be on the hunt again, and I can be on the hunt for the next thing. And, you know, that's what this hobby is about, is finding enjoyment, like having something to do with our free time, right? I mean, I think a lot of us can relate. So one aspect of catch and release that I want to touch on here is that if you can figure out a way to be a catch and release collector, or if you already are a catch and release collector, and you can figure out a way to make it profitable, now you're really onto something, because now you can get the enjoyment out of the hobby, and you're not like losing money all along the way. The thing with fishing catch and release, like fly fishing or whatever it may be, is you spend all this money on the gear, the equipment, you spend all of this time, maybe you take a vacation and go to a distant part of the world, and that costs money, and you catch that fish and you get the picture and you release it back into wherever you caught the fish. That form of catch and release is just definitely going to cost you money. And as long as you're enjoying that, then you're winning, because that's the whole point, is to enjoy stuff, right? But what I love about comics and what I love about this hobby is that you can do that and find a way to make it profitable. And if you really want to go down that rabbit hole, you can find a way to make it your career. You can find a way to make it support your family, but you're going to have to adjust the way you collect, which is what happened to me. I remember the first time I bought a book in a collection, the first collection I ever bought, it had an Amazing Spider-Man number 31, the first appearance of Gwen Stacy, and I was on the hunt for that book. And here it came in a collection. I offered the guy 70% of fair market value, and he sold me this book that I was actually after at the time. Like at this point, this was the first collection I ever bought. This was my first year in business. I still had to prove the concept to my wife that I could make money doing this. That my wife at the time, by the way, but I had to prove that, I was going to make money. And here I got this collection. Here's this book that I was after. I think it was around $1,000 at the time. So I paid $700 and it was worth $1,000. And I thought, oh my God, I cannot believe that I'm able to buy the books that I'm after at a discount. Like, I can't believe I'm in that position, which, by the way, took like a year before I was ever even in that position. This is not something that you could just do overnight, right? You have to be very, very dedicated to, establishing a profitable comic book business, but people do it all the time, and you could do it too if you were so inclined. But I kind of had a come to Jesus moment right there that, oh, I think collecting is going to be very different for me now. My relationship with collecting comics is going to be different now because I'm doing this as my sole way to support my family. And I'm going to have to be way more intentional about what I keep because they're all cool, and there's like, I really only a handful of books that I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to get rid of it. The 99.9% is like freaking awesome. I wish I could keep it. And so I had to become really intentional about what I was going to keep as collections came through, because the main priority was, having a successful business. There is definitely still stuff that comes through all the time where I'm just like, oh, I got to keep that one. That one's staying with me. The most recent one is this one here, Betty and Me, number 16. I'll put a better picture of it up on the screen. This is from 1968. It says classic cover with risque dialogue is the note here from CGC. It's a 5.0 white pages. A nice touch to have white pages on a Silver Age book. And it's got Betty on the cover there saying, Archie, did you have any trouble rescuing me? And Archie says, I sure did, Betty. I had to beat off 3 other guys. So, I mean, how can I sell this? I mean, it's like $500 or $600 in this grade, and it's like, no, I can't sell this for $500 or $600. It's a conversation piece. It's hard to find. It's rare. It's highly desirable. It checks all the boxes for me. I'm keeping it. And I know that there are people watching this video that like only buy, they only buy comics because they don't want to be bothered with selling. They have no interest in selling. That's not what they're not even concerned about the financial aspects of it. And I totally respect that. In fact, I kind of envy it in a way. I mean, it seems like so much less of a headache. The only problem that I would have with that is that I would run out of funds, and I wouldn't know how to, continually fund the hobby. And so that's why, like, starting out, when I started in the hobby, the only way I could afford to buy comics was if I could make money buying and selling comics. So for me, it's always very much been associated and tied with values and watching values, and things go up and things go down, and sell here and buy here and sell there so that I could fund this hobby. That's just always been a part of it for me. But if you can find a way to do the catch and release and make it profitable, man, the sky's the limit with your comic book collecting. Now, it's a little bit different in this current environment, and the state of the economy and the comic book market is definitely, depressed right now, I guess you could say. And so maybe you have to just, lengthen the time frame that you're going to catch and release. Maybe it's, a year or 2 years or however long it takes to turn around, but you're definitely not going to, find a book and then turn around and sell it next month for more, unless you got a really good deal. That's always on the table. That is always a possibility, or unless you found like a good deal on a book that was undergraded raw and you got it graded yourself and now it's worth way more. I mean, there's definitely money to be made in grading your own books and stuff like that. So there's still opportunity in this hobby. It's just not like it was during the comic book boom, which is back to normal, basically, I guess. And so now I have these best comics and I'm looking at it, and I've completed this run, and I'm not a completionist. I have the slight issue of displaying, and which, is not nothing to me. And I'm considering like do I sell it? Because here's the thing. When I got the Best Comics #1, and I had been searching for it for so long, and I believe I got a really good deal on it. We'll hop into some prices here in just a sec of these, but I believe I got a good deal on it. It was at mycomicshop.com. People are sleeping on mycomicshop.com auctions. It was an auction. It's in a CBCS holder. So I think I got a really good deal for this book around the $5,000 mark. And so that plays into it too, is like, I got this thing for what I think is a good deal. I open the box when it arrives at my house, and I just kind of hits me with, like, here this thing is, I was exhilarated to finally own it. But at the same time, it was like, I spent $5,000 on this. Like, do I want this for $5,000? And I know a lot of people can relate to that. When you make a huge purchase, a big comic book purchase, it's a big deal, a big financial decision. And I know a lot of people can relate to the thought of like, oh man. And this whole concept came up when we did that video just recently where the Tales of Suspense 39.9.8 sold for $2 million privately, and then turnaround 6 months later sold for $840,000, a $1.2 million loss. And the question is like, what happened here? Go watch that video if you want to go down the rabbit hole on that. But a lot of people said, this guy probably just got cold feet. He spent $2 million on a book, and he probably opened it up and was like, oh man, I paid $2 million for this. It's got a spine tick on it, or whatever the case may be. It's in a CBCS case. The case has a scratch. The staple is slightly askew. Whatever the case may be, you make a huge purchase, all of a sudden, the tiniest little thing, and you can have a change of heart when you're holding that thing in your hands. So it's been a few days since I started recording this video. I've cut a whole bunch of stuff out. This video is just like all about all the emotional side of buying and selling comics. And I sold the set. I sold the set of Best Comics, the whole set together, 1, 2, 3, and 4, to somebody who reached out to me the first time I posted a video about issues 1 and 2, and they said they were interested in it. And at that time I was like, well, I don't, at this time they're not for sale, and I'm going to be completing the set, and I'll think about it. I might reach out. So I reached out, and we went back and forth on numbers, and ended up selling it to him, the whole set, for about $10,000. And we're going to hop into GPA on why I think that was actually a screaming deal for this set. I think issue #1, when you see what issue #2 just sold for on Heritage, I think issue #1 could go itself around $10,000, and who knows, because what it would actually do at auction. I mean, you just don't know. But it's somebody who we're actually doing a payment plan on it. Somebody who's been after this set for a long time, which is really cool to see that. And so now I'm feeling like, did I screw up? What did I do? I'm having seller's remorse. Pretty much the same as, buying it. And right now I'm just in it, because this just happened. But I wanted to get it into this video. But, this is an emotional hobby. There's an emotional attachment to these things, at least for a lot of us. I know a lot of people can relate. And then other people are like, you're talking about comic books, or it's very not emotional. But for me, at least, there's a lot of emotion that goes into it. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if in a couple days I might feel just fine, or maybe I'll start the new hunt and feel even better. But I just wanted to give that little update. Let's take a look at prices. All right, so let's talk about values for these books. Here's Best Comics #1. We're on GP analysis to look at recent sales, and there just are no recent sales. The most recent sale was 4 years ago for a 1.5, and the rest of these just really aren't comps, because they're just from 2016, 2019. So it kind of comes down to what somebody is willing to pay, which is always the case, but it's a little bit harder to nail down when it's a super rare comic. Here's my purchase. This is the copy that I bought from my comic shop in January for $4,561, which I think was a good deal, right? My max bid was $5,000, which I thought was a good deal. A recent sale that kind of confirms that this, was a relatively good price is over here for issue #2. We had a recent sale at Heritage for a 3.5 for $7,200, which is a very impressive sale. But as you can see back at GP analysis here, I mean, it's a book that just never comes up. There's one recorded sale of a 3.5 and one recorded sale of a 1.8. And so, you know, this just came down to a situation where two people wanted it really bad, and one of them was willing to pay over $7,000 for it. So here's the copy that actually sold there. And then if we go and look at issue number 3, this book is just so scarce, there's no recorded sales. And mine's a 0.5, and you have nothing to base it off of. I mean, it's just one of those things. But one thing you could base it off of here is issue number 4. There was a recent sale in February of 20. I mean, that's somewhat recent. February of 2023 is over a year ago for a 2.0. But, you know, the market was actually doing better then than it is now. When I look at 690 and I think about my 1.5, it's like there's no way in hell I would sell it for 690. Why would I sell it for 690 at this point? It's like a book I can never find again. Like for $690, I will definitely just keep it. You know, but there is a point, you know, where you go, okay, what would I accept for it? And then issue number 3, same thing. Like I wouldn't take $600 for it. And so, anyways, the number 2 though is going to be for sale because there's 2 copies, and the one copy I'm going to sell on commission for the collector, and I'm going to price it at $1,850. Which was the price of a 1.8 in 2020. So I think all things considered, when you factor in this monster sale of a 3.5, I think a good presenting 1.5 for the same price as a 1.8 in 2020, usually the price difference between a 1.8 and 1.5 is negligible. I think that's certainly a fair price. The collector said he would be very happy with 1,850, and I don't think he should accept anything less than that. And so that's the pricing side of this. I just wanted to throw this idea out there in this video of being intentional about how you collect, because this purchase that I made for this Best Comics, it was kind of like it came up for auction and I didn't even really think about it. I just bought it because I just knew that I'd been hunting it for so long. There it was, and I had the funds to do it, and I just didn't really think about it. I didn't really think about, like, you know, do I want that in my collection? Do I want to put out $5,000? Is there other things? I didn't put that much thought into it, and that's what I wish I would have done. I don't think I would have done anything different, though. I think I still would have bought the book at the price it was because, you know, it's a good deal for that book. So just some food for thought, you know, think about the way you collect. Thank you for sticking with me all the way to the end. I know I'm a little long-winded today. This is more just like talking about it. Somebody left a comment on a recent video that just said, hey, I clicked on your video. I was going to watch it, but it was too long. Can you make shorter videos? And I just started laughing. It's like, no, I can't make shorter video. I'm here to talk. That's what we're here to do. And if you want a shorter video, go watch a reel or something. Find a little snippet. But no, we're going to like talk through these things. That's what this channel is about. That was just hilarious to me, but I do appreciate you sticking all the way to the end of the video. Don't forget all the giveaways and promotions and stuff. Check out brycecomics.com. We're always buying. Use code collect10. Get yourself some free stuff over on Whatnot. I appreciate you guys and would love to hear from you about your collecting style down below. Are you a completionist? Are you a catch and release guy? Yeah, thanks for sticking with me to the end. We'll catch you in the next video. Bye.